The year I was the hungriest, I worked for the richest, toughest girl in school. I took her notes and did her homework in exchange for 3 meals a day. Then, after I graduated from college, Skyler Vance found me and said, $100,000. Marry me. Be my husband. Back in high school, my parents didn't give me a dime. Not one. According to my stepdad, school was useless. You'd be better off getting a job, he'd say, though he never said that to my little brother. I fought to stay in. I paid my own tuition with money I'd earned from summer job. After that, I had exactly $50 to my name. $50 to last me half a semester. My meal plan was simple. A scoop of rice with a ladle of whatever soup was on the line. Total cost, $1.50. If I stuck to it, I'd have a little cash left over by the weekend. My little brother loved the greasy fries from the cart on the corner. I could buy him a small order to make him happy. I planned my days down to the penny, head buried in my books, never making friends with anyone in my class. I was afraid I'd start staring at their food, but I overestimated my own willpower. Teenagers are always hungry, and a diet of plain rice has zero nutrition. I'd eat lunch, and by first period in the afternoon, my stomach would already be growling. Finally, one day I broke. I ran to the little convenience store on campus and bought a bag of potato chips. They were delicious. The only problem was they were $1, more expensive than outside of school. After that, it was like I'd picked up a bad habit. Every day, I couldn't stop myself from secretly buying a bag of chips. By the time the weekend came, I only had $8 left. I calculated it in my head. $8 could get my brother a small order of chili cheese fries and a couple of onion rings. The moment I stepped off school grounds, a group of guys with bleached blonde hair blocked my path. They led me to a girl. She had dyed blonde hair, black lipstick, and earrings that looked as big as my fists. I recognized her. She was a known troublemaker from my class named Skyler Vance. She was the queen of the burnouts at Northwood High, the kind of girl nobody dared to cross. She'd been ditching class since freshman year, and the teachers just looked the other way. I lowered my head, not daring to look at her. "We got him, Scott." Skyler was leaning against a motorcycle, chewing bubble gum. When she heard them, she hopped off the bike. I could feel her walking toward me, and a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. "Look up." Her voice had a commanding tone, one you couldn't argue with. It was like my homeroom teacher's, but with a sharper edge. I lifted my head involuntarily. When Skyler recognized me, she made a tisk sound. I could clearly see the disappointment in her eyes. "Why'd you bring him? Don't you know he's the poorest kid in school?" "What? No way." "What do you mean, no way? The guy eats plain rice with soup. He won't even splurge for an actual vegetable. You think he's got any money on him?" "Shit, my bad. Get lost, dude. You're wasting our time." The blonde guy looked annoyed and waved me away. But in that moment, for some reason, my eyes were glued to the wad of bubble gum in Skyler's mouth. I couldn't move. I stared at Skyler, and she was staring back at me. My gaze seemed to unnerve her. After a moment, she hesitated and asked, "You want some?" Like I was possessed, my eyes lit up. "Can I?" I thought she'd give me a new piece from the pack. I never, ever expected her to pull the chewed-up wad from her own mouth and stick it in mine. The ball of gum was still slick with her saliva. Instinctively, I started chewing. It was a little sweet, but not too much. Skyler told me later she didn't know what came over her. She said the look in my eyes was so pathetic, so hungry, that she just couldn't help herself. Carrying the chili cheese fries and onion rings for my brother, I walked home in a surprisingly good mood. The second I walked in the door, my stepdad threw me out. "Think you're a big shot now, huh?" he yelled. "Since you're smart enough to pay your own tuition, you can forget about eating a single bite of food in this house. You can come back when you've got a job and are ready to contribute to this family." My mom just stood by his side, quiet and timid. I sniffled, smelling the rich aroma of the pot roast he was cooking, and turned around and walked out of the apartment. Behind me, I could hear the sounds of my little brother and sister laughing and playing. They were the children from my mom's new life with my stepdad. I was just the baggage left over from her last one. School let out at noon, so there was no lunch service for students. I wandered the streets aimlessly, trying to think of where I could find a place that sold cheap rice. Without realizing it, I'd walk to the auto body shop where I worked on weekends. I immediately quickened my pace to get away. The couple who owned it, the Millers, would be having lunch. I couldn't bother them. I walked and walked, stopping here and there, until I realized I had nowhere to go. Eventually, I ended up at an underpass by the old dried-up riverbed. It was a known hangout spot for delinquents. I figured even delinquents had to eat lunch, right? Hoping the coast was clear, I crept under the bridge. But as soon as I rounded the concrete pillar, I heard a burst of laughter. I saw a familiar motorcycle, and my body tensed. I turned to leave. Hey, stop. Who are you? What are you doing here? I froze and turned around slowly. Skyler recognized me instantly, and her expression was a little awkward. What are you doing here? She asked. Just hanging out. Hanging out? It's the middle of the day. Instead of going home to eat, you came here to enjoy the breeze. Yeah. In the end, they didn't let me leave. They pushed me down onto a concrete block and made me sit there while Skyler and her crew devoured the chili cheese fries and onion rings I'd bought for my brother. My own stomach was growling so loud it was embarrassing. Skyler didn't like the chili fries, so she passed those to her friends. She ate all the onion rings herself. Not bad, she said, pulling out a napkin to wipe her greasy fingers. I kept my head down, not daring to say they were for my brother. Everyone finished? She asked, looking at the three guys with her. They all nodded. Then, Skyler held out her hand. The three guys looked at her, confused. What are you looking at? Pay up. You think you can just eat someone's food for free? She said, kicking the guy closest to her in the shin. Ow, we have to pay, the guy groaned. He saw the threat in Skyler's eyes, shivered, and quickly dug into his pocket for some cash. The other two saw what was happening and did the same. Before they could even count out the right amount, Skyler snatched all the bills from their hands. She then pulled a $100 bill from her own pocket, added it to the pile, and shoved the entire wad of cash into my hands. This is too much. Just take it and shut the hell up. I didn't dare say another word. I just thought to myself that I'd find a way to pay her back someday. After giving me the money, Skyler and her crew took off as if they had only stayed to buy my food in the first place. As the sound of her motorcycle faded into the distance, I let out a sigh of relief. Maybe the rumors weren't all true, I thought. Skyler wasn't that scary. Before I knew it, the new semester started. I was relieved. Food on the outside was expensive. The school cafeteria was a bargain. My meal of rice and soup was only $1.50. Dinner time. As usual, I took my tray to a quiet corner and started to eat by myself. To my surprise, Skyler showed up. Her tray was loaded with food, meat, vegetables, the works. Compared to my meal, it was like heaven and earth. But she never came to school, did she? What are you looking at? Eat your food. Skyler shot me a glare. I obediently lowered my head and went back to shoveling rice into my mouth. A few minutes later, Skyler suddenly pushed her tray toward me. I can't finish this. Guess I'll just throw it out. But I could clearly see that her tray was still more than half full. It was such a waste. Hey, why don't you finish it for me? So it doesn't go to waste, Skyler said a little hesitantly, her expression unnatural. My breathing stopped. Then, before I could agree, she aggressively scraped all the remaining food from her tray onto mine. Eat it. Don't you dare waste it. This girl is so bossy, I thought. From that day on, Skyler would give me whatever food she couldn't finish, and I would obediently clean her plate. On top of that, she started giving me all her homework assignments to do for her. I did it all without question. What's that saying? If she was feeding me, the least I could do was her homework. For a while, rumors started flying around school. Everyone was saying Skyler had changed, that she'd stopped messing around, and was now focused on bullying just one person, me. It got so bad that a teacher pulled me aside for a talk. I wanted to tell them they had it all wrong. I wanted Skyler to bully me. It was the only way I could get a decent meal. Then, one day, Skyler suddenly stopped eating with me. I went back to my diet of rice and soup, but I didn't mind. If it wasn't for Skyler, I might never have known what the meat dishes in the cafeteria tasted like. After that, though, my desk started filling up with mysterious snacks. Sometimes it was a sandwich, other times a bag of beef jerky. One time, there was even a massive breakfast burrito. The combination of salsa, eggs, and cheese was unbelievably good. For a while, I was terrified, afraid I could never repay the kindness. I left a note on my desk telling the person to please stop leaving me snacks. But the next day, another snack was there. Finally, I went to Skyler and confronted her, asking if it was her. She just looked annoyed. What are you talking about? When I pressed her, she scowled, balled her fists, and looked like she was about to hit me. I got scared and ran away. With a steady supply of good food, my grades skyrocketed. In just a few months, I went from the bottom half of the class to the top 10. Even my teachers praised my progress and encouraged me to keep working hard. I knew deep down it was all thanks to Skyler. So, one weekend afternoon, I clutched the few $100s I'd saved up, walked nervously to Skyler, and asked, "Skyler, can I take you out to dinner?" Skyler was stunned. She just stared at me for a long time without saying a word. My head sank lower and lower. Just as I was about to give up, her soft voice reached my ears. "Okay." I shot my head up, my face filled with surprise. The truth is, Skyler wasn't ugly. Far from it. She was beautiful. She just intentionally dressed in an alternative style that made most of the kids in our class avoid her. That day, Skyler told me to wait for her outside the girls' dorm. I stood there for a long time. The campus emptied out until it was just me. Finally, Skyler came downstairs. When I saw her, I was speechless. It was a side of Skyler I had never seen before. She had fair skin, bright, clear eyes, and eyebrows that curved like willow leaves. Her gaze was full of a genuine, youthful innocence and energy. Her cheeks were slightly flushed, carrying a hint of shyness that could pull you in without you even realizing it. "What are you looking at?" "Never seen a pretty girl before." "No, I've never seen a girl as pretty as you." I didn't know it then, but what I said was basically a confession. But at the time, all I could think about was studying hard so I could earn my freedom to eat whatever I wanted. Romance wasn't even on my radar. Skyler took me to a classic diner. We ordered a deluxe cheeseburger platter to share, with an extra side of onion rings and a big milkshake. The bill came to $46. After we ate, Skyler wanted to walk around, so I went with her. Eventually, she led me to her house. It happened after she heard me say that my parents had kicked me out and I was crashing at the auto shop where I worked. "Wait, what the hell is wrong with your parents? Are they even your real parents?" "My mom is. My stepdad isn't." "Holy shit. You're brutally honest. You know that? You're staying here tonight." I was about to refuse, but then Skyler said her parents were out of town and she always had the place to herself. She lives in a house this big, all by herself? I looked around the huge 4-bedroom, 2-living-room apartment in complete shock. I thought about my own home, where I had to share a room with my brother. After my sister was born, I was moved to the couch. That night, Skyler insisted on cooking and made me a pot roast. As I ate the charred, blackened meat, I felt the warmth of someone caring for me for the first time in my life. Seeing how enthusiastically I was eating, Skyler couldn't resist picking up a piece that looked slightly less burnt and taking a bite. Instantly, her smooth forehead wrinkled into a small mountain. "Spit that out. Don't eat this, it's basically poison." She snatched the roast from my hands, threw it aside, and tried to pull me out the door to go eat somewhere else. "I don't want to." "What's wrong? You're not hungry. The roast is fine. We can't waste it." Skyler let go of my arm, a look of bewilderment on her face as she watched me pick the piece of meat back up from the table and start gnawing on it. Smack! She slapped her forehead, defeated. "Leo, if you keep this up, I'm worried I'm going to kill you by accident." My lips were stained black from the char, but I grinned, showing my white teeth. "You won't. As long as I have food and a place to stay, I'll be fine." And so, right in front of her, I finished the entire plate of burnt pot roast. Suddenly, I heard a loud gurgle. I paused, confused. The sound hadn't come from me. "What are you looking at?" "Can't a girl's stomach growl?" Skyler snapped. "Sorry," I said sheepishly. I ate all the roast. To make it up to her, I went into the kitchen and cooked her a bowl of simple noodle soup with a poached egg in the middle. "Well, look at you. You're a pretty good cook." "This soup is amazing," Skyler said, slurping the noodles while glancing at me from time to time. I scratched my head, too embarrassed to admit that simple noodle soup was the only thing I knew how to make. "From now on, you cook for me, and I'll give you a place to stay." "Got it." After finishing the entire bowl, Skyler wiped her mouth and clapped me on the shoulder with a swagger. "Got it," I nodded. From that day on, Skyler and I lived together. It was our little secret. Nobody knew. I was naive back then and had no idea what living together really implied. As for Skyler, she couldn't be bothered to explain. Every day after school, I'd go to her house first to start dinner. I knew Skyler was home whenever I heard the roar of a motorcycle engine outside. Sometimes, I felt like I was Skyler's pet. But then I'd think being a pet isn't so bad. You get food, shelter, and someone to clean up after you. As long as you're obedient, you won't get kicked out of the house. Our secret arrangement continued all the way until senior year. Leo, I'm moving to Europe. It was a month before the SATs. That day, I was in the kitchen trying out a new recipe. I'd learned to make so many new dishes since moving in with Skyler, things I'd never even tasted before. Suddenly, Skyler took a phone call in her bedroom. A few minutes later, she walked out and stood in front of me, looking dejected. Oh, I said. At that moment, I didn't fully grasp that she was leaving me. I just knew that moving abroad was supposed to be a good thing, so I nodded. Then, realizing my reaction might have been too cold, I forced a happy expression. That's great. Congratulations. Congratulations on what, you idiot? For some reason, Skyler got angry and punched me lightly on the arm. After that, she turned and ran back to her room. I scratched my head, slowly processing it. Did I say something wrong? Night fell. Skyler and I sat across from each other at the dinner table, which was covered with all the dishes I'd made. Braised short ribs, scrambled eggs with tomatoes, and most importantly, a bowl of simple noodle soup placed right in front of her. The soup was made with plain spaghetti noodles. A simple broth, a spoonful of butter, a dash of soy sauce, a handful of spinach, salt, pepper, and a single poached egg. She asked me to make it for her every weekend. And every time, she would eat every last drop. But today, she did something unusual. She brought out a few bottles of beer, opened one, and pushed it toward me. Drink. I don't drink. I said drink. No, it'll make my head fuzzy. It's bad for studying. Cut the crap. I'm telling you to drink. MMPH, no. That night, Skyler forced me to drink 2 bottles of beer, and after that, I was completely out of it. In a hazy fog, I felt someone tugging at my pants, and I could hear Skyler's voice out of breath. Damn it, this isn't how it happens in the movies. The next morning, I woke up on the couch. Skyler was already awake, sitting in a nearby chair with her big eyes wide open, just watching me. I scratched my head and sat up. I'll go make you breakfast. Skyler didn't say anything. After we ate, she suddenly spoke. You can't live here anymore. I just said, oh, I figured I'd been living in her house for so long. It was about time I moved out. Seeing my reaction, Skyler looked like she wanted to scream with frustration and punch me hard on the arm again. The school week wouldn't start until Monday afternoon. Skyler spent the entire day with me, helping me find an apartment. She even paid the first month's rent for me. I felt like I owed her more and more. After a long day of apartment hunting and shopping for essentials, Skyler was exhausted. Feeling guilty, I offered, let me take you out to dinner. She just shot me a look. Oh, look at Mr. Moneybags. We're going back to your new place, and you're going to make me that noodle soup. I didn't know why Skyler, who was always so generous, was being so frugal all of a sudden. But I obediently went back to my new apartment and made her a bowl of soup. I thought Skyler wouldn't be leaving so soon. I figured she'd at least wait until after finals. But with 2 weeks still left before graduation, she was gone. She left in a hurry, without even a chance to say goodbye. When I got back to school after my morning run, her desk was completely empty. I found a note she'd left in my own desk. Leo, I'm gone. Off to enjoy the good life in Europe. Bet you're jealous. Make sure you ace your finals. You're our school's big hope, you know. If I hear you screwed up, I'll come back and kick your ass. Beneath her neat handwriting, she'd drawn a little angry emoji. Her handwriting was still so beautiful. I always knew it was. It was just a shame I'd probably never get to see it again. I was focused during my final exams, not getting cocky, just because my practice scores were high. I stayed until the very end of every test before turning in my paper. In Skyler's words, you don't pop the champagne at halftime. You save the swagger for the finish line. After my last exam, I gathered my things and headed back to my little apartment. But as soon as I walked out of the school gates, I saw my younger brother standing there, looking frantic. I hadn't seen him in a while. He'd gotten so much bigger. Leo, he said, his voice trembling. Mom's dead. The first words out of his mouth were a gut punch. I rushed home with him to find my little sister with her eyes red from crying and my stepfather on the phone, yelling at someone about an insurance payout. My mom was in the morgue at the hospital. My brother told me what happened. They were on their way to an amusement park, and my mom had gotten out of the car to buy them some corn dogs from a street vendor. She was hit by a car. The driver fled the scene. They still hadn't found him. My brother and I went to the hospital to see our mom one last time. It's pretty bad to look at, the old man at the morgue told us. You boys. Just try to be strong. The man fumbled for words of comfort, but couldn't find any. I understood how he felt. It was the same feeling I had when I couldn't find the right words to say goodbye to Skyler. I saw my mom. In the 6 months I'd been gone, more gray had crept in her hair. The man was right. It was bad. Even the mortician hadn't been able to hide all the damage. I never imagined this as how we would meet again. Walking out of the hospital, I felt something wet on my cheeks. I reached up and touched my face, surprised to find I was crying. Just like that, there was one less person in the world who cared about me. In the days that followed, my stepfather grew more and more volatile. He was terrifying. I felt an instinctual urge to run away. I managed to hold on until my mother's funeral. Afterward, my stepfather grabbed my arm. Your mom's gone now, and you're done with high school. It's time for you to get a job. Go down to Texas, work on an oil rig or something. Your brother needs money for school. I refused, just like I had 3 years ago. You walk out that door, you're never coming back, he snarled. And I sure as hell am not paying for your college. I left without another word. I wasn't counting on him for tuition anyway. The state paid for it. That year, I was named a presidential scholar for the state of Ohio. The scholarships totaled over $200,000. I had never seen so much money in my life. I ran to Skyler's house, desperate to share the news with her, only to find that the apartment had been sold. Strangers answered the door. With the scholarship money in my bank account, I went back to the diner where Skyler and I had our first meal. I ordered the biggest, most expensive platter on the menu. 3 years had passed. The diner was still run by the same owner, and the decor hadn't changed a bit. But for some reason, the food didn't taste as good as it did back then. I sat silently in the same booth, finished my entire meal, and left. On August 14th, I attended orientation at MIT. From that moment on, I was officially a student there. For the next 4 years, I buried myself in my studies. I never joined any clubs or social circles outside of my dorm. I knew that the only reason I had enough to eat now was because of how hard I had studied back then. Besides studying, I still went for a run every day. Thanks to Skyler's feeding program, in high school I wasn't short. In fact, I kept growing. And without the intense pressure of high school, my skin even cleared up. Suddenly, girls started noticing me. Whenever I walked across campus, girls would shyly approach me and ask for my number. I turned them all down. Even my roommates said I was a hopeless case, that I'd probably be single for the rest of my life. In my senior year, I was accepted into an exchange program to spend a year studying in New York City. I wanted to decline, but then my advisor told me the program came with a generous stipend for housing and food. I thought about it and decided to go. The food in New York was terrible. Most of the exchange students I met were rail thin. At one get-together, the host's caterer canceled at the last minute. To avoid starving, I had to step up and cook. I never expected that after that night, everyone would start showing up in my apartment all the time. My landlord even waived my rent on the condition that I make him my signature Texas-style barbecue brisket once a week. Between the school stipend and the free rent, I wasn't just saving money. I was making a couple of $1,000s a month. I silently thanked Skyler in my head. If it weren't for her, I'd still be a novice who only knew how to make simple noodle soup. I never thought I'd see Skyler again in my life. That night, my landlord's son had invited me to a party at one of his rich friends' penthouses. Countless local girls were there, dressed to the nines in clothes that seemed to consist of as little fabric as possible. Aren't they cold? I wondered. And then, across the crowded room, my eyes locked on her. She was different from her high school self, wilder now. A waterfall of golden blonde waves cascaded down her back. Her lips were painted a bold, sexy red, and I could see the faint outline of a tattoo on the curve where her neck met her shoulder. Right then, she was holding the arm of a blonde, blue-eyed guy, laughing and chatting with a group of friends. She looks happy here, I thought. Not like in high school, where everyone avoided her. Leo. It was one of the other MIT students on the exchange program calling my name. As soon as he shouted, I saw Skyler freeze. She looked around, her eyes scanning the room, and when her gaze finally landed on me, her face lit up with an excitement I had never seen before. Leo, what are you doing here? How did you find this place? Skyler let go of the guy's arm and rushed toward me, moving surprisingly fast on her 4-inch heels. She threw her arms around me in a huge hug. I could barely breathe, my nose filled with the scent of her perfume. I'm here to cook, I managed to say. To cook. Hearing my answer, Skyler looked surprised, then burst out laughing. You haven't changed a bit, have you? Still cooking for everyone. I scratched my head, embarrassed. Just then, my friend came over. When he saw me laughing with Skyler, he froze and pointed between us. You two, you know each other? I nodded. I never expected such a simple gesture to provoke such a huge reaction. Oh my God, you know the Skyler Vance? It was only through his explanation that I learned just how wealthy Skyler's family was. No wonder she could afford to move to Europe in high school. At the host's request, I made a huge batch of my famous barbecue brisket, and then I planned to leave. I hadn't wanted to come in the first place, but he'd begged me to show his friends the magic of real American barbecue. While I was cooking, Skyler stayed in the kitchen with me, her eyes never leaving my face. Leo, she asked softly, can you make me a bowl of that simple noodle soup? You want some? Yeah. Okay. I found a box of spaghetti in the pantry and made her a bowl from scratch, right there on the spot. This time, I didn't use instant noodles. I watched from the kitchen as Skyler ate the entire bowl of soup, down to the last drop of broth. When she was done, she put the bowl down and smiled at me. It's so good. Tastes just like it used to. 7. In the weeks that followed, Skyler started asking me to hang out whenever she had a chance. I could never say no to her, so I always had to put my work aside to go with her. She would keep us out until late at night. Then, she would always find an excuse, saying it was too late to go home and crash at my place. She slept on the bed. I slept on the couch. This is nice, she'd say. When I asked her what was so nice, she would just shake her head, smiling as she looked at me without saying a word. Leo, I'm here. Are you dating anyone? It was late at night. In the dimly lit room, I was lying on the couch, mentally reviewing the project tasks my advisor had given me that day, when I heard Skyler's voice. No. Really? You're not just, bad at it, are you? Skyler suddenly seemed very interested. She climbed out of bed, her bare feet padding softly on the floor as she came over to the couch. Scoot over. Make some room for me. I dutifully shifted my body to make space. Skyler squeezed in next to me. Instantly, my whole body went rigid. I could feel the softness of her body next to mine and smell that familiar fragrance, similar to high school, but also different. Come on, tell me everything. Your big sister here will help you figure out what the problem is. Skyler didn't seem to notice my stiffness and just kept pressing me for details. It's nothing. They just seem like a lot of trouble. I mumbled. Whoa, Leo. You're not gay, are you? Skyler sounded even more excited, like she'd discovered a new continent. I knew what that meant. It wasn't a compliment, especially for a straight guy. I immediately denied it. Eventually, Skyler's questions wore me out, and I fell asleep. When I woke up the next morning, the space next to me was cold. Skyler was gone. For some reason, my heart felt hollow, like I had lost something important. Not only that, but in the days that followed, Skyler seemed to vanish completely. She stopped calling, stopped coming over. She's probably busy with her boyfriend, I thought. Time flies when you're busy. Before I knew it, the day of my return to the States was approaching. The project I was working on finally wrapped up. To celebrate, my advisor rented a huge house for a wrap party for the entire team. At the party, one of my fellow MIT students, a senior named Amanda, publicly confessed her feelings for me. Everyone else started cheering and clapping. Go for it. Ask her out. Do it. Even my advisor was smiling, telling me, Leo, you're brilliant at your work, but you need to think about your personal life, too. Looking at Amanda's blushing face, I felt myself waver for the first time. Maybe Skyler was right. Maybe I really should try being in a relationship. I nodded and said, okay. The room erupted in cheers. Congratulations, Leo. The Eternal Bachelor is finally off the market. Amid the whoops and hollers, Amanda walked over and gave me a hug. 8. I had 10 days left before heading back to Boston. During those 10 days, I took Amanda all over New York City. At every spot, she would order tons of fancy, photogenic food. Today's journey, she said, will become a beautiful memory for our future. For the last 3 days, we stayed at our respective apartments, packing and getting ready to go home. I tried to contact Skyler, wanted to say a final goodbye, but I never got a response. She must be busy, I figured. On the day I left, my landlord's family and all the friends I'd made in New York came to see me off. Everyone except Skyler. I felt a pang of disappointment. But that's life. Meeting someone is an accident. Parting ways is the norm. After returning to MIT, my advisor immediately pulled me into a new project. Thanks to my outstanding performance in New York, a professor took notice of me and offered me a spot in the Ph.D. program, allowing me to skip my master's degree. My life got even better, but as the academic pressure mounted, my contact with Amanda dwindled. The next time I got a call from Skyler was 6 months later. By then, the new energy project I was working on had reached a critical stage. It was late on a freezing winter night. "Leo, I'm back in Boston. Can you make me a bowl of that simple noodle soup?" Her voice on the phone was small, almost pleading. It was a tone I had never heard from her before. I hesitated for less than a second before nodding to myself. "Okay, where are you?" "I'm at the campus gate." The moment I agreed, I could hear the pure joy in her voice. I quickly got permission from my advisor, threw on a down jacket, and ran out the door. When I got to the main gate, Skyler was covered in a light dusting of snow, her small nose red from the cold. I took her back to my place, a single dorm room provided by the university. "Wait here. It'll be ready in a minute." I told Skyler to make herself at home while I went into the kitchenette to cook. As she ate, she was restless, constantly glancing up at me. The 5th time she looked up, I couldn't help but ask, "Is it not good?" Skyler shook her head, her eyes curving into crescent moons. "It's delicious." I went back to slurping the noodles in my own bowl. "Leo, I'm here. Can you not like someone else? I can pay you. You can marry me, okay?" I looked up. Skyler's eyes were filled with a cautious vulnerability. She slid a credit card across the table toward me. I froze. "I know you have a girlfriend already, and I shouldn't be getting in the middle of it, but I really can't stop liking you. I have since high school. I thought I could forget you, but then you showed up again, and I couldn't control it. I was going to come back with you. I had all my bags packed and everything. But then I heard you started dating that girl from your team. But I met you first," she said, her voice cracking. Tears started to stream down her face. I noticed that she wasn't wearing any of her usual heavy makeup tonight. She'd just simply done her hair. I was silent for a moment. "Actually," I said slowly, "Amanda and I broke up." "Huh." The crying stopped abruptly. Skyler stared at me, dumbfounded, with tears still clinging to her long eyelashes. "For real?" "Of course it's real. You're not lying to me?" "I'm not lying." The words were barely out of my mouth when Skyler burst into a teary-eyed smile. And then, puffed, a big snot bubble inflated from her nose. "Me? Skyler. 10. Skyler. And I got married." The news blew up our high school alumni group chat. Everyone was talking about how the class valedictorian had ended up with a resident bad girl burnout. I didn't care at all, because without that burnout back then, there would be no valedictorian today. After the wedding, Skyler and I lay in our new bed, reminiscing about everything that had happened. "Honey." "Yeah, babe." Skyler didn't say anything else, just giggled to herself. After a long moment, she finally said, "Why did you and Amanda break up?" I frowned, thinking for a second. She was too wasteful with food, and she was obsessed with everything being perfect and curated. We just weren't a good fit. Hearing this, Skyler burst out laughing. She couldn't believe that was the reason. She wondered what kind of face Amanda would make if she ever found out she lost Leo over wasting food. But she was also grateful to Amanda. If it weren't for her, she might have missed out on the greatest love of her life. So, I asked, "What about that boyfriend of yours in New York? Why did you two break up?" "Boyfriend?" "Yeah, the guy I saw you with at the party." "What?" "Oh, him. He's gay. He was just one of my best friends." And just like that, the misunderstanding was cleared up. Later that night, Skyler looked at me with an expression of pure astonishment, as if she had just witnessed a miracle. It was only then that I learned she had spent all these years thinking I had erectile dysfunction. The reason? That drunken night back in senior year of high school. When she told me, I couldn't help but flick her on the forehead. "Are you an idiot?" I was passed out cold. Of course nothing was going to happen.